All right. This is Dr. Catherine Dow reporting for Rheumnow Live 2019. We are day 2 of conference, and here I have several members of the audience. We have Dr. Scott Toder, Dr. Kylie Toder, Dr. Tuan Vu, and Dr. Kasturi Inaganti. And I wanted to get their feedback on this conference and also what they have learned during the time they've spent here. Dr. Toder?
Thank you. Well, I'm glad to be here, and I thank Dr. Cush for arranging this. The first thing I like to say is that he was thinking of the physician in their office, that they could take time off on a weekend as opposed to the middle of the week to try to attend this conference. And I think the selection of topics has been quite relevant to what I'm doing in my office on a daily basis. And many of the things that I'm thinking about every day in my office are being addressed here with the selection of the lectures, and the lecturers have been excellent. I have really enjoyed that they're short and sweet and gives you time to absorb everything, and I appreciate that, and I look forward to many more of these in the future.
What about you, Kylie? Coming from a younger perspective, very digitally enhanced platform, what are you thinking about this conference?
So far the conference has been great. I am a big fan of the podcasts that Dr. Cush posts on Fridays, and listen to those, and that's how I initially learned about the conference and looked into it. And the speakers, the lineup looked really wonderful, and have all the lectures, and they have been very clinically relevant. There's also been some basic science which has been covered, but it's also clinically relevant to me in my daily practice. And so it's so far really, really great, great speakers and great lectures.
Dr. Vu, what have you learned today that is going to influence your practice the most?
I'm very, first of all, I'm very grateful that Dr. Dow and Dr. Kush have set this up for a lot of us. I'm very proud of you having this in Texas, so make Texas, I'm proud of that, because I'm just half an hour away from here. I am a solo doctor, rheumatologist, so sometimes, you feel a little bit reclusive and isolated. So coming here is not just educational, but also to have a chance to see my colleagues from different age and from different. Some of them I've met a few times, so it's like almost like friends now. In terms of the so far, today is the second day, and so far I think all of the lectures have been very educational, and I learned quite a bit. And some of them are a little bit above my head, so I need to go back home and review. So that's a good thing.
And Dr. Inaganti, what about you? How's your experience, and have you learned much that's going to influence your practice?
Thank you, Catherine. Yes, I've learned a lot. I must say this is my first interaction with Rheumnow Live, and I've become a great fan because this is so relevant to my clinical practice, and the array of talks are really great, and they're very clinically relevant. They're not an overdose of basic science, but they are very apt to my practice. I've learned a lot of interesting things, especially about some difficult topics like managing infections with rheumatic drugs, as well as what do we do in terms of vaccinations. Those are really burning topics, and I'm really more confident in the way I probably would practice and maybe teach my peers back when I go back to my group practice. Also about I've gotten a chance to see some of the gurus in rheumatology all over the world through the podcast, and it's really interesting, and I probably would never have gone to EULAR or otherwise to see them. So this is a great opportunity to meet people from all over the world, and also learn about stories like what is the story behind cortisone, or what is the story about methotrexate. And it was really great to learn Yala Pragada Subbarao, who is actually from my own hometown back in India. He did so much of great work, and he was the forefather behind methotrexate. So this is a great experience. Thank you.
So have any of you planned to take what you know and share the knowledge? I'm just going to throw this out. For example, Dr. Weinblatt was talking about in the CERT trial with methotrexate how there was increase in non-basal cell skin cancer. Are you going to start sending your patients to dermatologists to screen? With Dr. Madeline Feldman and the PBNs, is your blood boiling right now? Absolutely. Who wants to take this?
For me, as a solo rheumatologist in the community, when I receive quite a lot of referrals, and sometimes the surgeons want to do surgery on my patients, and they make me fill out the forms and follow the protocol and things like that. I think the lecture on how to manage patients on medications such as biological agents in terms of before surgery, on after surgery, or when things happen like infection, I learn a lot, and I think I will apply those tips in my practice. The same thing with the lecture about pregnancy. What medicine I should be careful not to hold or can continue, things like that. I think that would be very practical that I can incorporate in my practice going forward. Thank you.
I appreciate the clear, concise guidelines that we've gotten on issues such as the vaccines and how to advise our fellow physicians and our patients with medication holding preoperatively, postoperatively. Those issues come up every day. I think another interesting point that I got from the lecture about pre-rheumatoid arthritis is that it is a real issue, and I need to pay perhaps more attention to those patients who do come with family history of rheumatoid arthritis and positive antibody testing, even though they have had no physical findings. I found that very interesting and helpful because that does come up frequently.
So I would say that lecture was very helpful. I would expound upon that and say that was very helpful in terms of modifications and recommendations that you can make to those patients. In terms of the issue with methotrexate and dermatology, I do think that is something that I will implement in clinical practice. I do recommend that all my patients who are on TNF that we have them seen by dermatology annually, and I think that is a recommendation that I will initiate to patients who are on monotherapy with methotrexate at this point. So I do think these are very clinically relevant, and I also found the lecture on pregnancy and medications to be helpful. And I do think another issue that comes up that was addressed in that lecture in terms of male patients that we have who are on therapy was very helpful and has certainly come up for me in practice. And so I'll look forward to seeing those guidelines too, but certainly the lecture was a nice preview.
One word about the PBMs. That was a great lecture in terms of getting an insight into how things are being run on the other side. For a doctor, patient, that's our utmost importance that we give to our patients about how to treat them. But we have all these governing factors which rule the roost, unfortunately, which make it kind of, which tie our hands down in terms of what we can do for our patients. But it's good to know what exactly is going behind the screens and about these lawsuits which have been brought up on certain companies, pharmaceutical companies, and how the rebate works. And I was able to understand and get more insight into what all these mean. And yes, my blood boils, and something has to be done because this is not fair for any of us.
Thank you so much for all your perspective. And you can follow us on hashtag RNL2019. And how many of you knew that Fred Wolf had a cat? That's right, and a very active cat for that matter. So come join us, Rheumnow Live Conference, rheumnow.com.